So what I invite you to do during this practice session is to explore ways to make sure that you have that idioplastic faculty. It means you've got to be willing to change your mind. Be really willing to change your mind. Now, a little bit of willingness is good. A little bit of change is good. But what tends to happen is the system reverts back, because systems don't like to change, do they? You know, systems like, because if a system's working, the system wants to stay as it is. So sometimes we need to have big changes or incremental changes, one change that leads to the next, to the next, to the next, till eventually the system changes. So your ability to have more idioplasticity of your mind comes from your willingness, because you're all accomplished at this. You're here to play, aren't you? You've got open minds. You're willing to explore and try new things. The real skill is you being able to convince your clients to just follow your blessed instructions and explore that ability to change their mind and have the willingness to expand and try new ways of seeing things. Because do you know what they will do? They will fight to hold on to their limitations. That's what a lot of people will do. They'll hold on to limitations simply because it's familiarity. So what I want you to do, a quick thought experiment, is this. I want you to take a moment and just think of a limitation that you have, a belief, a threshold. Yeah, maybe you're at the edge of the map of your reality, or maybe it's unknown territory you don't want to go with. There's a limitation, there's a belief. And I just want to check, has everyone got one? Or some of you thinking deeply. Is that because you've got too many to choose from? Yeah. Let me just check in. Who has one to work with? Fabulous. Joel, I'm not seeing any sign from you. We're picking on you. There we go. Oh, it's a bit slow today, isn't he? All right, okay. So I'm going to take you through and by the way, hold on to this one. Not like it's your precious, okay? And when I say hold on to it, you don't have to defend it. I want you to be willing to shake it up a little bit and to see it from a different perspective, and to explore what it's like from different points of view, because that's what reframing is. It's to take something and see it from a different framework. And when we see it through a different framework, we see things that maybe we hadn't seen if we're just seeing it one particular way. That's being stuck, okay? Seeing things only one way, doing things only one way is being stuck. And when you get good and better at reframing, you will unstick not just yourself, but also other people. So make a mental note of what this limitation is, and I want you just to close your eyes. Just close your eyes. Now, Milton didn't say that suggestion or suggestibility is based upon the depth of trance at all. He didn't say anything like that. He did say the purpose of trance is to bypass conscious mind limitations, to evoke potentials and provide new and better mental maps for navigating life. Yet you all know that people are all in a trance anyway. So whatever trance you are now in is just the right trance for you to be able to look at that. I'm going to call it a belief. Okay, I'm going to call it a belief. Whatever it is you're thinking about, it's a belief. Because even if it's a threshold, it's still only you believe there's a threshold there. If it's a limitation, it's still only because you believe it's a limitation. And if you hold on to that belief, well, let's think about that. I want you to imagine seeing the belief in front of you. Now, I don't know how you're going to represent it. Maybe you will see it in a written form. Maybe you might see some form of symbology to it. But a way where you can recognize that that's the belief, and there will be a structure to a belief, because there always is a structure to a belief. There's either cause-effect beliefs or complex equivalence beliefs. Cause-effect, something happens and there's an effect. Complex equivalence, something happens and we attribute a meaning to it. So the belief is there. There's a structure to it. I want you to give yourself permission to see the belief and imagine moving back through time. Now, I don't know how you're going to do this. Maybe you're going to imagine the past is to the right of you and the future is to the left. For the purpose of this, that would be a useful thing to do. And I want you to imagine moving back through time parallel to the past and going back to some of the earlier moments. So you're only observing, you're just observing when maybe you picked up these beliefs or this belief. Maybe things happened. You can change the time frame reference. So you can look at the events, the situations, the people when maybe this belief was first born. And some of you, you'll have clarity on that. Some of you, you may just get a sense of it. The thing is, whether you are consciously aware of it or not doesn't matter, because your unconscious mind is aware of when it first formed this belief. Because you weren't born with it. You learned something. And perhaps there was a time in the past where that belief would have served a genuine, useful purpose for you. Maybe it kept you safe or secure. Maybe it kept you just quiet. You know, I've heard people that were told to don't leap too high. You know, children are meant to be seen but not heard. All sorts of limitations like that. They can be the breeding ground, the formation of all sorts of limiting beliefs. So I want you to give yourself permission to float back parallel to time, back to when those beliefs were born, so you can see them for what they were, which was they served a purpose at some point. Yet now you've outgrown those beliefs. They may have served a purpose. We honor the service they've given to us. The first thing we do is we honor, we acknowledge, we accept, we appreciate that they had a good intention. And once we've honored that, once we acknowledge and once we appreciate the intention, we can ask the unconscious to be willing to look at anything else that may be there to support the belief. So what I want you to do now is to move back to the present and just to consider any of the what we call secondary gain you might get from holding on to this belief. What currently does holding on to this belief do for you? What does it give you? What do you get from it? What's the secondary gain that means the belief still serves a purpose at some level? Because when you know what the secondary gain is, you can then start to look at alternatives. You can preserve the positive functions of the gain, but get rid of whatever the cost is for holding on to the belief. So how are you going to do that? Well, maybe you can look into the future, the timeline. If the future extends off to the left, move yourself to the left and look at the consequences of you holding on to that limitation. What's the downside? What's the cost of holding on to that? Is that what you want? Probably not. Come back to the present and just imagine stepping back and looking at the bigger picture. Look at all of the ecology around you, your family, your friends, your work colleagues, your relationships. Are there any other secondary gains that you get by holding on to that limiting belief? because the blind spots, once they're revealed, they're no longer blind spots. We get the chance to experiment and look at different ways of preserving the positive benefits of the belief, but without the belief. I want you to give yourself permission to look at multiple different perspectives of this belief. Could you see it as maybe even funny? Could you see it as ridiculous? Could you see it as childlike? Could you see it as cute? Could you see it in what other ways where you might have a completely different perspective of it? And just take a moment just to use your creative imagination. I want you to imagine how many other ways there are to maintain the benefit of the belief, but without the limitations. How many other ways are there that maybe you've not even considered because you just accepted the limitation as it was? So I like to honor the ecology. I like to address the secondary gain. I like to enrich mental maps, and I like to increase requisite variety. And requisite variety, it comes from cybernetics. It's the study of systems. And it's the ability to be able to have more variations and flexibility than limitations. It's the ability for you to look at something that maybe has 5 ways of blocking you and stopping you, but you have 5 ways of overcoming it. And this comes from you being willing to explore multiple perspectives, giving you, as many of you rightly said when I asked that question about why do we give suggestions in trance, it gives you options. People that are stuck have no options. If they've got one way of doing something, there's only one way of doing something. The more options and choices you have, the more flexibility you have. And it's time to flex your ability so you become the cause of the effect of your life. A lot of people live their life at effect, where the outside world is the cause of their experience. It's time for you to have the ability to flex and see different ways so you become the creator of your experience. You get to rewrite, to redraw your maps. You get to reframe them. You can look at something and you can change the meaning of it. You could look at something like a belief and you can see where in another context that would be useful, but not in this one. So in a short while, I'm going to hand over to Tina, and you're going to explore multiple ways, different ways of stretching and flexing, enriching mental maps for yourself and for other people. Now, tonight, while you sleep and dream and sleep, I invite and encourage your unconscious to continue to work on this, because this is something that you brought to the party, you brought to the practice group. You raised it up. You brought it into your conscious awareness, and you've already begun some work on it just by this guided reflective exercise, this ecological reframing. And I want you to take the limitation into the next part of what we do and to practice looking at limitations in completely different ways. Instead of seeing them as obstacles, maybe you could see them as stepping stones. Now, that's a reframe, is it not? Here's one last thing for you to consider. Who would you be without that limitation? Who would you be without that limitation? Oh, but I'm not going to honor my word. That wasn't the last thing to consider. I just thought of one more for you to consider. What makes you think you have to believe in that limitation? What makes you think you have to even believe in that limitation? Could you doubt it? Who would you be without that? So in a moment, I'm going to ask you to open your eyes and then come back and just take a moment, and then just in the chat, what did you get from that experience? So take a deep breath in, open your eyes, a big stretch. Oh, shake yourself out. Who likes watermelon? That's the watermelon breaker state.